We're used to hearing Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin ranting and raving at Russia's military leadership, particularly at Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, for problems on the battlefield thought public infighting between the Wagner mercenary group and the Ministry of Defense isn't new. Shoigu for starting Russia's war in Ukraine in February last year. Speaking first about the fighting in eastern Ukraine that began in 2014 after Russia's military intervention, Prigozhin said, "We were hitting them, and they were hitting us." That's how it went on for those 8 long years from 2014 to 2022. Sometimes the number of skirmishes would increase, sometimes decrease. On 24 February 2020, there was nothing extraordinary happening there. Now, the Ministry of Defense is trying to deceive the public, deceive the president, and tell a story that there was some crazy aggression by Ukraine that, together with the whole Nato bloc, Ukraine was planning to attack us. The war was heated, so that Shoigu could become a marshal so that he could get a second hero star. But war wasn't for demilitarizing or denazifying Ukraine. It was needed for an extra star. Prigozhin also blamed the war on oligarchs, condemning the clan, which in practice rules Russia today. Strong words, but will they have consequences? That depends on the nature of Prigozhin's current relationship with President Vladimir Putin, and no one's quite sure what that is right now. Prigozhin has named the Fall Guys, and they don't include Putin, but would that work? After all, Putin is so closely associated with this war. In his address to the nation on 24 February 2022, the Kremlin leader made it clear that it was his decision to launch the so-called special military operation, the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, plus arguing that the president has been woefully deceived by a minister he appointed doesn't reflect glowingly on the man at the top.
True.
Russia, the Kremlin, controls the media landscape and the messaging. If TV channels and pro-Kremlin military bloggers here were to transmit such an interpretation, many Russians would accept it. But what if Yevgeny Prigozhin's outburst wasn't coordinated with the Kremlin? What if he's acquired political ambitions of his own? Prigozhin concluded that having made powerful enemies within the Russian elite, especially the military, for him attack is the best form of defense, even if it means going off message. Prigozhin risks rocking the boat and Russia's political system by undermining the Kremlin's messaging. Only last week, Putin repeated the need, as he sees it, to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. Prigozhin's latest comments contradict that argument. I've written before that making sense of Russian politics is like trying to do a giant jigsaw puzzle with most of the pieces missing. You attempt to connect the clues, but you're never quite sure what the final picture will be. I'm still puzzling out Prigozhin. But aside from the Wagner chief, there are other interesting pieces of the Russian jigsaw which hint at a different outcome. For example, as badly as things have gone for the Kremlin in Ukraine, might Moscow declare mission accomplished? President Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov recently claimed that the aimed OD in Ukraine has largely been achieved, arguing that Ukraine has less and less of its own armaments and is increasingly reliant on weapons from abroad. And earlier this month, more than 20 Ukrainian soldiers, members of the Azov regiment, went on trial in southern Russia. Russia calls Azov a terrorist group that harbors neo-Nazis. Could it portray the case as denazification and stop there? But there are other indications that stopping is not in Putin's plans. In recent appearances on TV, he's come across as confident of victory and dismissive of Ukraine's counteroffensive. The enemy is suffering major losses, Putin told a Russian TV reporter this week, adding the enemy has no chance.